We're very pleased to welcome to the show Clyde Prestowitz. He's founder and president of the Economic Strategy Institute. Prestowitz served as counselor to the Secretary of Commerce in the Reagan administration, where he led U.S. trade and investment negotiations with Japan, China, Latin America, and Europe. He is the author of The Betrayal of American Prosperity. Clyde's going to be speaking today at noon at the World Affairs Council of Oregon at the Multnomah Athletic Club. ClydePrestowitz.com. Great website. Check it out. Clyde, welcome to the show.
Oh, good to be with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. You know, I want to start with the green future. It's really dumbfounding to me how we cannot have a coherent energy policy in this country. And I know Speaker Boehner said yesterday that maybe on the table would be these $45 billion in subsidies to the fossil fuel industries over a decade. But you don't have to accept climate change to want to compete for the green future. Germany, China, investing in all kinds of solar panels, wind power. The U.S. is increasingly being left behind here.
Absolutely. And what really has always amazed me is the fact that, you know, by focusing on fossil fuels, we're increasingly dependent on the poisonous politics of the Middle East. You would think that just as a matter of national security,
right,
we would focus on catching up with the Germans and the Koreans and the Chinese and the Japanese in wind power, photovoltaic cells, and all the green energy technologies. But we have a taboo in this country, which is called industrial policy. And for some reason, although we can subsidize farmers and we can subsidize the oil industry, when it comes to thinking about setting standards or setting policies that would promote these kinds of green industries, our economists all say, oh, no, we don't want the government to pick winners and losers.
And yet we do it all the time, as you pointed out.
We do it all the time, and moreover, because other countries, as you point out, Germany, China, others, are pouring effort into these areas, the fact that we don't do anything, that's a decision. That's a decision to allow them to become the leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. Clyde, the undervaluing of China's currency, finally, I think the House addressed a little bit of this. The president puts it on his radar screen. What's being done about China undervaluing the currency? And beyond that, what's being done to with U.S. companies moving jobs overseas? I mean, everyone talks a good game here. Is anything being done?
Nothing is being done. On the currency side, the Treasury keeps talking about doing things in the G20 or the IMF. The G20 and the IMF are not going to do anything about changing the manipulation of currency that a number of Asian countries engage in. Not going to happen.
Right.
But even worse than that is the fact that many countries use aggressive investment incentives. So they want to induce the transfer of production for the U.S. or from Europe or from someplace to their country. And so they say, well, you know, if you want to sell here, you have to produce here. And how much would that plant cost? $6 billion? Oh, we'll give you $2 billion. And they do that in the form of tax abatements or free land or free infrastructure or what have you. But the point is that it's effectively an investment subsidy. The U.S. doesn't match that kind of subsidy. And so the result is that the incentives in the global system are strongly to draw production of tradable goods and provision of tradable services out of the U.S. to China, to Malaysia, to France, to other places. And we don't do anything about it.
Clyde Prestowitz is with us. He's speaking at noon today before the World Affairs Council of Oregon at the Multnomah Athletic Club, ClydePrestowitz.com. I know you talked about this in The Betrayal of American Prosperity, and your subject today is free market delusions, America's decline, and how we must compete in the post-dollar era. Give us 3 bullet points, Clyde, the 3 top things you would do if you were president of the United States or set American trade policy right now.
Well, the first thing I'd do is to make Invest in America my theme song. If I were the president, you know, I wouldn't give a speech without talking about investing in America. I wouldn't meet with any kind of a business executive without asking him or her, what are you investing in America? Why aren't you producing in America? This is what foreign leaders do all the time, and it's time that our leaders understood that investing in America is the key to our future prosperity. So number one. Number two, our whole globalization policy is wacky. I mean, for example, the president goes to China and in his press conference says that we're going to help the Chinese build their own commercial jet liner. Well, commercial jet liners are one of the few things that we can sell to these guys.
Right.
So what we need is to rethink our trade policy, our globalization policy, in terms of understanding that it's not always win-win. The orthodox economic theory is that trade is win-win. That's only true under very limited circumstances.
Right.
And in the circumstances that we're dealing with in major capital-intensive industries like aircraft, like semiconductors, it's not necessarily win-win. And we need to understand what it takes for us to win and to get behind it.
Right now with globalization, we're making it lose-lose.
It kind of is, yeah. And the third point is that we don't adequately understand the cost of worker displacement as a result of the imbalances and the asymmetries of globalization. We need to spend a lot more time focusing on how do you get workers retrained, how do you help workers adjust, how do you create a level playing field for labor.
We can look to Germany for part of that answer, and isn't it ironic that both parties keep talking about jobs, 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 and they're not getting to the root of it?
Well, exactly, and your point about Germany, I think, is terrific because here's a country that has some of the highest social costs in the world, highest wages in the world, and it's competitive. It's the world's biggest exporter. It has a huge trade surplus. It has a trade surplus with China. It's competitive, and it's competitive partly because business leaders, government leaders, labor leaders work together and think about what do we need to do to be competitive and keep production in Germany.
And that right back there is a great point you have made, is that corporations and labor always seem to be at and the government always at loggerheads in this country when they should be working together for the interests of this country. Our guest is Clyde Prestowitz. He's going to speak today at the World Affairs Council of Oregon at noon, Multnomah Athletic Club. Get there if you can. His website is ClydePrestowitz.com. Last thing, Clyde, and thanks for joining us today. This proposed trade agreement with South Korea, I think you and others have pointed out that President Obama, from all I read, wants to be buddy-buddy with President Lee in South Korea. And you have spoken out against trade agreements that are in political interest that maybe the State Department wants for countries to cozy up, but is not in our economic interest.
Well, this is a perfect example. I mean, I was at a meeting just last week of high-level officials in Washington who are trying to sell this South Korean free trade agreement, and their biggest argument is that we need this agreement to cement our relationship with Korea. And I'm thinking, well, let's see, we've got 30,000 troops in Korea. We guarantee Korea's security. What do we need to do?
I think that's a lot of cement already, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's pretty amazing. Clyde, thank you for joining us. I just love your work, and I really urge everyone to go to ClydePrestowitz.com, read The Betrayal of American Prosperity. Our guest, Clyde Prestowitz, founder and president of the Economic Strategy Institute in Portland today at noon at the Multnomah Athletic Club. Clyde, thanks a million.
Great to be with you, Carl.
Okay, thanks a lot. Right now, I want to point something out before I go to break here. Clyde Prestowitz was counselor to Ronald Reagan, led U.S. trade and investment negotiations with China, Japan, Latin America, and Europe in the Reagan administration. He is saying the things that need to be said right now. People should listen.